Do you really need to use an app if you want to go hiking through the British countryside? And if so, is it worth paying for the premium features? Well, to be honest, I don't know yet, but we're about to find out right now as we put the OS Maps app to the test. We're about to set off on one of the app's curated hiking routes to see if the features are any good and is it worth paying for the extras. And hopefully we're going to see some amazing scenery on the way as well. So come along with me and let's see what it's all about. Now before we get going, let me show you the route that we're going to be following today. So this is the one I've selected. Fairburn, Ings and Ledsham. I've never been here before, so it's a brand new area to me. And one thing about the walks in the app in OS Maps is that they all seem to be curated from professional publications. So you would think then hopefully that the average standard, the quality of the routes should be pretty reliable, but let's see. So we can see here we've got 4.95 miles, estimated time 2 hours 12, but I think we'll probably be a bit faster than that. And then we can see on the map the route. Actually, let's keep it on satellite. This is where we are right now. I haven't pressed start yet, but I parked up in Fairburn and I've just walked to this starting point because it looks a little bit nicer here than in the parts covered by the trees. So we're going to be going around the water, through some farmland eventually it looks like, and then circling back into Fairburn. I'll show you a few more of the map features a bit later on, but for now, let's get started. Now there are a number of hiking apps out there. So why have I chosen OS Maps? Well, simply because it's probably the most well-known. Ordnance Survey, the creators of OS Maps, have been mapping the United Kingdom and other places for a long time. And so within the UK especially, they have an offering of highly detailed and accurate maps. And so there's one obvious benefit that we get immediately from using this versus something like Google Maps, and it's that we can see footpaths. If you're not from the UK or you're relatively new to walking, you might not know too much about the legal rights of way around here. But we have a lot of freedom to roam around countryside and farmland here. There are rules, of course, but the exact places that you can travel on foot, you typically won't find on Google Maps. It's a shame I haven't got a telephoto lens because there is so much wildlife out there. It does make me wonder, to be honest, why Google haven't integrated rights of way, bridle ways into their mapping system. Presumably some kind of legal reasons, or maybe it's on the way at some point, I'm not sure. So that's one reason to use a mapping app other than Google Maps. And to be fair, it's a pretty significant one if you like going out off the track and into the countryside. But are there any other benefits? Well, that's what we want to try and find out today. And let me tell you up front, this video is not sponsored by OS Maps, so you'll be getting my honest opinion. And more importantly, we're all going to see firsthand right now just what it's actually like to use it out there in the real world. Not really sure that that's doing anything. So the next big question is probably, well, what are the features then? What exclusive features and what premium features do OS Maps offer? The free offering is actually pretty solid. So you get the maps, you can create, record and follow routes as well, with some restrictions which I'll get to in a second. And it says you can use their partner routes, one of which we're walking today. So if you just want to use the maps, find some routes and get out there, the free offering, to be honest, is more than good enough. There are a few premium features here: plot with snap to path, download offline maps, access to an additional collection of maps, 607 OS leisure maps. I'm not too sure what those are. Import GPX, these are your own map files basically. Map printing and additional topographic maps for the USA, New Zealand and Australia. Now out of all of those, for me at least, there's two that are particularly useful, and it's the ability to snap to paths. That means when I try and create my own route within the app, it will take my two start and end points and then mold it around all the footpaths. If you're just using the free version, it won't do this. So you've got, to be honest, a really tedious job of having to put all your points in on the various footpaths to make sure you get an actual usable route. So that feature alone is pretty useful. And then secondly, being able to download offline maps. Depending on where you're planning to go to and how remote you want to be, there's a fair chance that you're going to be somewhere without signal. So the last thing you want is to arrive at a remote destination try and load up the map and see that you can't do it. So I can see that being really useful as well. The other premium features, I guess it all depends on what kind of adventures you're planning to head on and what you need. Village Bay viewpoint. I guess if you're a keen bird watcher, you might want to come here with some binoculars. Be on the lookout for vibrant red fly. How do you say that? Agaric, toadstools lining the footpaths. Okay. You might also come across birch polypore. We've seen those before. A type of bracket fungus that grows on birch trees. Now I've kind of ended up here a little bit by chance today. We've had a very rainy weekend here in England, well in Yorkshire specifically. And so I've been constantly checking the rain maps for the last 24 hours, trying to find somewhere dry that I can go to film this video. And this was one of the only places that looked like a safe zone. Now another thing you'll find when you search for routes on OS Map are reviews. You get a kind of a mixture of information, some of them quite minimal, some have more than others. So with this one, we've got a few photos. It doesn't really tell you exactly where they are on the route, but they give you a feel for what to expect. This one has a pretty detailed description of the route and the area as well, which if you want to know more about where you're walking around is going to be really useful for you. I'm not going to read all this one out because it's quite long, but it's good to know it's there for those that would like it. I have seen some other routes that are either description-less or more minimal on the description. So the amount of information you do get is pretty varied. On top of that, we get a bunch of other things. We can do a 3D fly-through. I don't know how useful that is, at least for me. It's kind of nice to see, I suppose, but it doesn't seem to really give me much information that I'm not getting from the other maps in the first place. And then we've got elevation information, and the one I wanted to show you was reviews. So this particular route has got 36 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars. And unlike Google Maps and TripAdvisor, I don't think OS Maps is the kind of territory where people are buying fake reviews. There's no incentive to do that, at least as far as I'm aware. So they should be pretty reliable. I'll be honest though, for me, I do quite like to take a gamble on a new route. And some of the things that prompt bad reviews, like awkward terrain, things like that, I kind of enjoy. The routes can feel a bit more adventurous if they're not so often trodden. So for me, if I was to find a route with 0 reviews, that's probably all I need to know to start heading straight towards it. Okay, now our route wants us to go this way, but I'm kind of intrigued by this little strand of earth here. So let's have a little detour just to see what's down there. It's another another hide. Shout out to Bob Dickens. So I think what I saw on the map is those little patches of land we can see sprouting out of the water. A part of me was hoping it was some kind of elaborate footpath, stepping stones thing, but that was a long shot, given that this is kind of a protected site for wildlife and birds. Okay, let's head back to our path. Now, in terms of other features, what you want from a walking app is going to be pretty specific and personal to you. I think we've covered the big ones already. Is there much else that most people would need, really? I think probably the biggest secondary group of users are going to be what we might call hardcore users. People who want more information, more detail in their maps. So let me show you one more feature that sets an app like OS Maps apart from the others. So these maps are the most heavily detailed ones you can get. For a lot of casual hikers, there's going to be just too much information on here. But if you're navigating either tricky terrain or you're planning a big hike in a place you've never been to before, this is probably worth a go for you, because it'll give you a really detailed idea of what you're going to be heading into. We can see rivers, bridges, public footpaths, bridleways. We can even see elevation. These numbers and orange lines here are the contour lines of the land. The closer those lines are together and the larger the difference between the two adjacent numbers, the steeper the path you're about to embark on. And if we zoom out, you can see all kinds of other things. Telephones, very detailed maps of villages, towns. Pretty much anything you can think of significant to the land, you'll find on there. Now we are 0.85 miles in. We've got a few miles left to go, and we should be pretty soon getting out into some farmland, I think. There's a path right in front of me, apparently, but that's got to be a mistake, because there's nothing there. Unless my GPS is a bit wrong, which is possible. This doesn't look too promising. Yeah, the path on the map just does not quite match up. And here again, you can see, I'm pretty sure my GPS is accurate now, but it's suggesting that somewhere here there was another route through this woodland, but that just doesn't seem to be right. So I'm going to go around here. I'm going to have to just improvise a little bit. It is possible that I missed something, but I don't know, I was looking pretty intently. And to be honest, that's the one thing that I would expect from trails on a map like OS Maps, these curated lists, as opposed to something like All Trails, which is another app. All Trails I've used less, but it's much more heavily populated with user-created routes. Oh. I don't know if you can see that. Might have been a bit too camouflaged. I feel like I need to be quiet now, in case I disturb any rare birds. Yeah, if I was using All Trails and a user-created route, I'd be much more forgiving when it came to sketchy directions and paths, because anybody can create and upload them. So I'm being a little bit more picky and critical of these ones. I think we're sort of passing through the visitor centre, and then we're heading out back into the wild. So there is a whole visitor centre here with lots of events happening. And for any Twitchers out there, you'll probably know more about many of these than me. A little bit of road crossing. Not ideal for a countryside walk, but it happens. If I was planning my own route, I'd do my best to avoid any roads really, just because I'm trying to get away from the noise as much as anything else. Again, it looks a little bit odd, because we can see there's a footpath pretty much going straight ahead here, but I mean, maybe I'm just taking the map too literally. That is kind of my way of thinking sometimes. I'm looking for a designated sign or a walked path that matches the blue line. Maybe I shouldn't do that. So I think we're just going straight ahead somehow. Now you may have noticed on that sign, it didn't say something like footpath. It said public bridleway. Now this can easily be confusing for tourists and visitors, but it can be confusing for us, natives who were born here as well. What's going on here? Because there are many different categories of footpath in the UK. There's standard public footpath, public bridleway. We've then got permissive paths. And the differences around these paths are usually so minimal that you don't need to worry about them. If you see a sign that says some kind of footpath or the word public, you can almost certainly follow that route. And if you were to look up the key, the map key on OS Maps, you'll see just how many variations there are. So there are a lot of slight variations that you might see. Road tunnel, and that's a road obviously. Road under construction, very similar looking lines for different things. Man-made features, hedge, cycle barrier, Roman road, all these different vehicular roads, railways, and then a ton of symbols for tourist information sites, points of interest. So if you really wanted to, if you were big into map reading there'll be people out there who, I mean, they probably got bored of this video by now because they realised I'm a bit of an amateur, but they'll be interested in the detail. That's what they want from a map. And they know what all these different symbols and colours mean. But my needs are much simpler, and I think that's the case for many other people out there as well. I just want to get out, have a nice walk, and not injure myself, not get stuck somewhere. And speaking of injuries or getting stuck, there is another really useful feature in there that actually is a really good tool to have. Let's get a bit further through this woodland and then I'll show you how it works. Okay, we are now about halfway round, maybe a bit further. We've done 2.2 miles, 45 minutes. We just passed through the woodland. And again, on the topographic map, we would see a bit more. We've got some wildlife symbols, names of the little patches of woodland. On our way to Ledsham, and then we're going to come back through Wormstall Wood, Lambkin Hill, and then back into Fairburn. And we can even see things like the wind farm on here, which is a bit far away in the distance, but it is there. So far, I'm not blown away by this route. You might be a bit disappointed at this point in the video because I suggested there might be some incredible views. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty in its own way, but it's also a little bit bleak at this time of year. I think I've been a bit spoilt as well because it might have been last week or the week before. Oh, we got a pheasant here. Just running away. Hello. They're so funny when they run. Yeah, a recent video about the Druids. I got really lucky. Just by chance ended up walking through, and it was absolute chance. An amazing patch of woodland that just had so many colours in it, so much wildlife, that in comparison, this feels a little bit plain, or a lot plain. Now, I mentioned one other feature to you a moment ago. When it comes to being potentially in danger or trapped somewhere, this was also recommended to me recently by North Wales Mountain Rescue. If you're in the app and you open up the map, whether you're in a route or not, hit the 3 dots at the top right and then locate me. And it'll give you what's called your grid reference. If you're ever in trouble and you need the emergency services, this is exactly what you need. Call 999 first of all, tell them the situation, and then, if requested, give them your grid reference and they'll know exactly where to find you. And that is a free tool, so 100% worth having on your phone. Even if you don't have plans to go anywhere extreme, it's worth it, just in case. Now, there's 2 other things about OS Maps I wanted to show you and mention. One is the pricing, which we'll have a look at the end. And then another feature I've not used before is the Watch app. So it's synced my information. What else does it show me? Elevation, average speed. Is that all? I guess maybe it'll tell me when to turn as well. But visually, I'm just getting a timer and a distance and the option to pause. Could be useful. I guess if you just want to see at a glance how far you've travelled and how long you've been going for. Elevation numbers, I can only assume you only need if you're doing something a bit more extreme. Obviously, we're not really climbing at all here, really. Well, sorry, I say that. 138 feet, pretty big deal. Yeah, so that must be for more mountainous excursions. Oh, that's weird. I can hear the power lines like buzzing. It's quite loud. It doesn't make a lot of sense. None of this really seems to add up. Ordinarily, I'd admit that it's me being a bit simple, but I've got solid signal, I've got GPS. There's just a lot of mismatches. Luckily, when you start one of these routes, it does track where you've actually been, so we can see how different my route was from the intended paths. And we can see here, public footpath. However, see what I mean? It's like it just hasn't properly snapped to the correct paths. So I think actually I need to be on that one just below the blue line. Otherwise we're going to go way the wrong way. Okay, so we're kind of on the final stretch back to Fairburn, I think. So the last remaining question is price, and I suppose, is it worth it? And to be honest, the free version is worth a download just by itself. My advice would be, if you want to get outdoors, whether you live here or you're visiting, download the app and try it out. If you notice anything's missing or there's some restricted features, there's your answer, I guess. But it might be enough on its own. If you want to try out the premium version, I think it's just perpetually running. You can get 2 weeks free, at least on iOS, on Apple. Aside from that, you can either pay by month or by year. I've paid just for 1 month to try it out, and it's $6.99. But if you decide to pay for a full year, it works out at £2.91 per month. So that's $34.99 a year, which, to be honest, given that I do this a lot for my work, I'll probably end up subscribing. So I'm typically out in the countryside at least 4 times per month filming various videos for this channel. Please, keep dogs on lead. Yes, that monthly price of £2.91 is a great deal. There's no other way around it. Again, not sponsored, my honest opinion. Let me know what you think though. And listen, hey, if I've messed up my map reading and navigation today, call me out on it, because there's been a few mistakes here and there that I don't think were entirely my fault, but they happened. So likewise, if you've got any map reading or navigational tips, they'll always be welcome in the comments as well. Now you might have other questions. The only other major one I can think of, at least right now, is for other countries. We have a fair few international viewers on this channel from different parts of the world. Would OS Maps be useful for you? And that's something I wouldn't be certain about. They do provide worldwide mapping, but these heavily detailed maps are only available in certain countries. Not only that, but from my limited understanding, from what you lot have told me, essentially, the laws when it comes to walking through private land are vastly different in other countries. And so when you see me on this channel walking through fields, farmland, in a lot of places, that's not only not possible, but dangerous or even deadly. Oh. So I am curious to know what kind of restrictions everyone else has. Now there's only one thing left for us to do as we near completion of this route, and that's give it a rating. Might as well get some photos. The beautiful power lines to show people what to expect. To be fair, I don't want to do it an injustice. I've enjoyed it. But there are so many other options for amazing countryside walks. Even just in this part of Yorkshire, we're in North Yorkshire today. And if somebody was asking me for a recommendation, this probably wouldn't be the one. This probably wouldn't be the one. The nature reserve, the bird reserve, absolutely. I mean, if you're interested in that sort of thing. And if you are going to the bird reserve and you do want a longer walk, this is the perfect circular to just tag along to it. And you'll have a good time, I'm sure. You'll earn yourself a nice pint and a pub lunch at the end of it. There's no doubt about that. But it probably won't be a route that you'll necessarily be rushing back to do again. And I don't think that's because of the time of year and the weather either, because it can be pretty bleak in Yorkshire in autumn and winter time, but in the right places that also gives it its kind of beauty and some of its most iconic and inspirational scenery and views. All right, so let's close up this final part of the route, get ourselves pretty much back to Fairburn. I'll show you anything interesting I might see on the way, and then I'll give you my final thoughts of the OS Apps map. And I want to hear yours, of course, as well. Turns out I didn't pass anything particularly exciting to show you. It's just farmland, you know. So my score for this route, I'm going to give it a 3. Maybe if I was here in summertime, it'd be a 3.5. There's just not too much to see. It's pretty plain around here. And actually, having been out today and used this route from the app, in future, I'd probably be more likely to just plot my own route. I'm sure there are many other curated routes on there that I personally would enjoy more than this. But the recent walks I've done on this channel, where I've just picked a random route, they worked out really well. And we ended up finding some really unusual places, ancient places. We're not quite back at the start, but we're very close. You might be able to hear the cars in the background. So I'm going to finish my route. We've got 4.17 miles, 1 hour 27, average speed and that sort of thing. Half a mile left apparently. So you get a bit of information. Again, for me, as a very casual user, the distance and the time are the two that I'm going to be using. And then if you want to, you can add some notes in. You can save it. What would you rate this route? I'm being a little bit generous there, but I feel like I'm being stingy here because most of the other reviews for that one were quite high. Maybe I'm the a-hole here. I'm just being overly critical, but that was my experience. Let me know what you think though. I'm really keen to hear what your opinion is, either on this app or other hiking apps. Do you just not use them? Do you use paper maps? Do you just eyeball it, use the signage out there? And if you've got any other tips or recommendations for hiking around the UK, please share them in the comments, because I'm always looking for ways to improve my adventures. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed the route. I know I've slagged it off a little bit, but I hope you've enjoyed the video and got some useful information about the app. Huge thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel recently, making these videos possible. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done already, and fingers crossed, I'll see you next time.